it's good to be back. I've been away for a couple of weeks. I attended a conference in Toledo, Ohio, an encounter conference. And then I went to visit my family and friends in California for 2 weeks. And one of our parishioners here messaged me on Facebook, "Father, where are you? You've been missing. I reported you as a missing person to RCMP." So the joke is the RCMP has found me and brought me back to St. Mary's. But it's good to be back. I miss all of you. I hope you miss me too. So, no. So Father Mark will be away this coming 3 weeks. And to make up for me being away for several weeks, I will be preaching to you for 3 consecutive Sundays. And I was looking at the reading for the Gospels this coming 3 Sundays, and it's all about from John chapter 6, which is about the bread of life. That's why I was thinking, why not make or do a mini preaching series about the bread that gives life. So today, in this Sunday, I will be talking about the desire of the Good Shepherd to feed his sheep. Looking at this picture, I'm sure it will bring us down to memory lane. How many of you have those Nokia phones in the past? Like in the year 2000, I've had several Nokia phones. So it has a smaller screen, and then it transitioned to BlackBerry. How many of you had BlackBerry? It's a bigger screen, right? And also, I hope you've watched this film about BlackBerry, about the success and failure of the BlackBerry. And then iPhone came out, right? A bigger screen, like the whole thing is a screen. And somebody said, when iPhone was invented, it invented the cure to boredom. Whenever you're bored, take out your iPhone, right? And I don't think it really cured boredom. It just increased the amount of distraction. That's why there, it says there, the amount of distraction in red. The bigger the screen, the bigger the amount of distraction. And I'm very guilty with this too, okay? I have an attachment also to my iPhone. And everything is there, right? You could call, you could text, you could email, you have your calendar there, you have a camera, you could listen to music, you could watch movies there, and it's a lot of distraction there. And this distraction is not just with phone. It could also be in other things. Gambling. I went, my cousin brought me to Las Vegas. I didn't gamble, okay? So it's a form of distraction. People will just go there in the slot machine for hours, right? Another form of distraction, shopping. Just online shopping, finding the best deal. It's a form of distraction, okay? Another thing is for young people and also even adults, playing video games is a form of distraction, okay? What happened there is that when we get obsessed with doing these things, it creates an excitement in us and an energy, okay? But what happened there is that we tend to zone out whenever we're getting obsessed with something, okay? And we miss out on what is really good and what is really important, okay? When we get distracted, when we get obsessed on something, we get disconnected with God. We also get disconnected with other people, okay? That's why, sometimes when you see people, family going to a restaurant, everyone, father, mother, children, all with their iPhones, and then they're not communicating. There's a disconnect that is happening, okay? And these things that I've said are not bad by itself, okay? If we're able to practice it in moderation. But sometimes we tend to behave like children, right? That we don't know our limits. We don't know how to practice moderation. Sometimes we need parents to tell us, like a parents, to tell us what to do and what not to do. Okay? In our gospel today, the crowds that was following Jesus, they were acting like children also, behaving like kids, not knowing their limits. Okay? It says there, a large crowd kept following him because they saw the signs that he was doing for the sick. They were astonished. They were amazed by the preaching of Jesus and the miracles that he performed. In Mark chapter 8, verse 2, this is about the feeding of the 4,000. And what happened there, I think also happened with the feeding of the 5,000 in our gospel today. It says there, Jesus saying this, I have compassion for these people. They have already been with me 3 days and have nothing to eat. Because they were mesmerized. They were astonished. They were amazed by the preaching and the miracles that Jesus performed. And sometimes I would think, how I wish that all priests will be as good as Jesus in preaching. Can you imagine that? You will be here for 3 days. You don't mind being hungry. You don't mind the heat. You don't mind the hard pews that you're sitting on. Because you're mesmerized by the preaching of the priests. Because they're preaching like Jesus. Right? Is that a good idea? You want to be here for 3 days? Okay. Then Jesus asked Philip, where are we to buy bread for these people to eat? It's a test. Jesus wants to test Philip and the disciples. Philip said, well, 6 months' wages would not buy enough bread for each of them to get a little. 6 months of wages, not enough. This, Jesus is testing them. Jesus wants to know if they would trust in him after he performed all the miracles, right? He could easily change the stone to bread. Remember when Satan was tempting Jesus in the desert? Why don't you change the stones to bread? He could easily do that, okay? So he was testing them if they would trust in him. And what was going on in the mind of Jesus when he sees that he needs to feed 5,000 and then they have no food? Was he alarmed? I'm questioning you. Was he alarmed? No, because he has this heavenly mindset. In heaven, is there something lacking in heaven? No. Everything there is in abundance. And Jesus have this heavenly mindset. For him, there is nothing lacking. That's why he have this abundance mentality. Compare that to the disciples. They have this earthly mindset where resources are scarce, where everything is not enough. Okay, they have this scarcity mentality. That's why the Lord is teaching the disciples to renew their mind. And the renewal of the mind is the process of shifting our mindset from a worldly human perspective to a divine heavenly perspective. And then in the gospel, there's this boy who brought 5 loaves and 2 fish. Why a boy? Why not an adult or something? Right? I think the Lord is pointing out in our gospel today that we need to imitate this boy, this childlike faith. Maybe this boy witnessed how Jesus healed the sick, raised the dead, expelled demons. And this childlike faith of this boy saying, well, my 5 loaves and 2 fish, it's more than enough for Jesus to perform the miraculous. Okay? So we see how Jesus took the loaves, the 5 loaves and 2 fish, and when he had given thanks, he distributed them to those who were seated. So also the fish, as much as they wanted. Okay? The Lord is providing an all-you-can-eat buffet of bread and fish. Right? He said they could eat as much as they want. And after the leftovers, they fill it up 12 wicker baskets. Okay? So, and it says in our gospel today, and they were satisfied. That's what happened. When we receive the bread that the Lord is giving us, our soul will be satisfied. Okay? That's why this is the desire of Jesus. Jesus, our good shepherd, has this desire to feed his sheep, all of us, his sheep, with this bread. Okay? And at Mass, there are two liturgies here. The liturgy of the Word and the liturgy of the Eucharist. In the liturgy of the Word, of course, we hear the Word of God. In John chapter 14, verse 6, Jesus says, I am the way, the truth, and the life. When we hear the Word of God, Jesus is catering to those who are lost. That when they hear the Word of God, they would find the right way. Jesus is catering to those who are in bondage. Bondage to lust, bondage to any form of addiction, bondage to fear, bondage to anger, resentment. So that when people hear the Word of God and the truth will set them free. Jesus is catering to those who are dead in sin. That when they hear the Word of God and obey it, they will come back to life. That's why the liturgy of the Word is very important for us. It's an appetizer. I hope it's whetting our appetite to receive Jesus in the Eucharist. In the liturgy of the Eucharist, Jesus, through the priest, would change the bread and the wine to become his body and blood. In order to nourish us, to give us strength. He knows how weak we are. On our own, we have no strength at all to be able to say no to sin and yes to God's will. That's why he has this great desire to feed his sheep with his body. The question is, are we being satisfied when we come to Mass? When we hear his word, when we receive his body, are we being satisfied? Because you could just come here, receive him, and then go out and then not satisfied at all. If you're just going through the motion of coming to Mass, no relationship with the Lord, you will not be satisfied. That's why we have to ask ourselves, are we being satisfied? Do we cherish his words that leads the right way? The truth that sets us free? The word that gives life? Do we value so much his body and blood that gives strength in our spiritual journey so that we will reach our final destination in heaven? So this Sunday, I'm talking about the desire of Jesus, our good shepherd, to feed his sheep. Next Sunday, I will be talking about our desire to be fed with this bread that gives life.